Dr. Zephyrian Kethaval adjusted his bioluminescent patches nervously as he approached the administrative desk of the Galactic Medical Archive. His serpentine body coiled with anxiety beneath his pristine white medical robes. After serving as the chief physician aboard the exploration vessel, Harmony's Edge, for 3 standard cycles, he had finally decided to request access to his human patients' complete medical records. The request seemed simple enough. During his tenure, he had treated numerous species from across the galaxy, but humans remained an enigma that both fascinated and disturbed him. Their physiological responses defied conventional medical understanding, and their recovery rates bordered on the impossible. I require the complete medical documentation for patient designation, Human 7749. Marcus Chen, Zephyrian spoke into the translation device, his voice carrying the melodic tones characteristic of his Etherian species. The Vorthan clerk, her crystalline features refracting the ambient light, processed the request through her neural interface. Her expression shifted from routine boredom to confusion, then to something approaching alarm. Dr. Kethaval, this request requires additional authorization. The files you're requesting are classified under Protocol 77 Alpha. Zephyrian's head tilted, a gesture that in his species indicated deep perplexity. I am the attending physician. Surely I have the right to review my patient's complete medical history. The clerk's crystalline fingers danced over her interface with increasing urgency. Sir, these files are... They're marked with a classification I've never encountered. Top secret, Deathworld protocol. I'll need to transfer this to my supervisor. Minutes stretched into an hour as Zephyrian waited. He reflected on the peculiarities he had observed in Marcus Chen during their recent encounter. The human had arrived at the medical bay with what should have been fatal radiation poisoning after an accident in the ship's engine core. According to every medical text Zephyrian had studied, the human should have been dead within hours. Instead, Marcus had complained primarily of nausea and fatigue. His cellular regeneration had proceeded at a rate that Zephyrian's instruments initially registered as measurement errors. When Zephyrian had attempted to administer standard radiation treatment, Marcus had politely declined, claiming he just needed to sleep it off. The human had been correct. 72 hours later, Marcus had returned to active duty with no measurable trace of radiation damage. Dr. Kethaval? A new voice interrupted his thoughts. A tall, imposing figure approached, its features obscured by a formal administrative hood. I am Supervisor Melchian. I understand you've requested access to Deathworld protocol files. I simply want to understand my patient better. Zephyrian replied, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with sincerity. The human exhibits medical anomalies that contradict established physiological principles. Supervisor Melchian's posture suggested careful consideration. Doctor, what I'm about to tell you is sensitive information. Humans originate from what we classify as a Class 12 Deathworld. Are you familiar with this designation? Zephyrian's knowledge of planetary classifications was extensive, but he had never encountered a Class 12 rating. I am not. Could you elaborate? Class 12 worlds are theoretical nightmares. Planets so hostile to life that we assumed no complex organisms could evolve there. High radiation, extreme weather variations, aggressive predatory ecosystems, frequent natural disasters. The mortality rate for most known species would approach 100% within days of exposure. The supervisor paused, allowing this information to settle. Humans evolved on such a world. Earth, as they call it, has shaped them into something that defies our understanding of biological limitations. Zephyrian felt his respiratory system flutter with what his species experienced as intellectual excitement mixed with fear. You're suggesting that what I perceive as medical anomalies are actually normal human physiology? More than normal, Doctor. Enhanced. Humans possess biological systems that we're still struggling to comprehend. Their immune systems can adapt to pathogens in real time. Their skeletal structure can withstand forces that would pulverize most species. Their nervous system processes pain and stress in ways that allow them to function under conditions that would incapacitate or kill others. The supervisor's tone grew more serious. The Deathworld protocol exists because humans represent both an incredible medical marvel and a potential security concern. Their physical capabilities, while beneficial in their role as crew members, could be misunderstood by other species. Zephyrian's mind raced through his interactions with Marcus, The human's casual attitude toward injuries that would require extensive treatment for other species suddenly made sense. This explains his reaction to the radiation exposure. But why is this information classified? Consider the political implications, Doctor. If other species learned that humans are essentially living weapons shaped by evolution on the galaxy's most hostile world, how do you think they would react? Fear, prejudice, demands for segregation? The weight of this revelation settled over Zephyrian like a heavy blanket. He had requested simple medical records and instead uncovered a galaxy-spanning secret that recontextualized humanity's place in the cosmic community. Your patient file request has been approved. Supervisor Melkian continued, producing a secured data crystal. But understand that accessing this information makes you complicit in maintaining the Deathworld protocol. You will be bound by the same confidentiality agreements that protect human crew members throughout the galaxy. Zephyrian accepted the crystal with reverent care. I understand the responsibility. But as a physician, I need to know how to properly care for my patients. Read carefully, Doctor. What you're about to learn will change how you perceive not just humans, but the very nature of life in our galaxy. Humans are living proof that sometimes the most beautiful flowers grow in the harshest soil. As Zephyrian left the archive, crystal secured in his medical bag, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was carrying more than just medical records. He was carrying the truth about a species that had somehow transformed cosmic adversity into evolutionary advantage, and that truth was apparently dangerous enough to require the highest levels of galactic security. The journey back to his quarters felt longer than usual, weighted with anticipation and a growing sense that his understanding of biology, medicine, and life itself was about to be fundamentally challenged. Dr. Zephyrian's personal quarters hummed with the soft blue glow of his reading lamp as he inserted the classified data crystal into his secure terminal. His serpentine form coiled around his desk chair, bioluminescent patches dimmed to their lowest setting to minimize distractions. The first files that appeared made his respiratory system seize with shock. Subject: Marcus Chen, human male, age 34, standard galactic years. Origin: Sol system, planet Earth. Classification: Deathworld Class 12. Warning: standard medical protocols. May be insufficient or counterproductive. The opening summary alone challenged everything Zephyrian understood about xenobiology. Marcus's baseline blood pressure would indicate severe hypertension in any other species, yet for humans, it represented the lower range of normal. His bone density measurements suggested a skeletal structure designed to withstand impacts that would shatter a Vorthon's crystalline frame. But the real revelations lay in the detailed physiological analyses. Humans possessed redundant organ systems that could compensate for catastrophic damage. Their liver could regenerate from as little as 25% of its original mass. Their immune system maintained a constant state of aggressive vigilance that would exhaust other species within days. Zephyrian scrolled deeper into the files, his fascination growing with each data entry. Earth's environmental factors read like a catalog of extinction events. The planet's gravity was nearly double that of most inhabited worlds. Its atmosphere contained oxygen levels that were toxic to many species, yet humans had evolved to not just tolerate, but require this corrosive gas for survival. The radiation exposure data made Zephyrian's patches pulse with disbelief. Earth's natural background radiation would necessitate protective equipment for most galactic species during even brief surface visits. Humans lived in it constantly, their cellular repair mechanisms treating it as a minor inconvenience. A section, labeled Stress Response Mechanisms, revealed perhaps the most disturbing information yet. When faced with life-threatening situations, human physiology underwent dramatic changes. Their cardiovascular system could increase output by 300%. Their pain sensitivity decreased while reaction times improved exponentially. Their bodies produced natural stimulants that would be classified as powerful combat drugs if synthesized artificially. Zephyrian paused his reading to process what he was learning. The radiation incident suddenly seemed trivial compared to Marcus's normal physiological capabilities. The human hadn't been dismissive of medical treatment out of ignorance, but because his body was genuinely equipped to handle such exposure as a routine challenge. The psychological profiles proved equally startling. Humans demonstrated a peculiar mental resilience that their doctors termed adaptive optimism. They possessed an unusual ability to maintain hope and functionality, even in situations where logical analysis suggested certain death. This wasn't ignorance or denial, but rather an evolutionary adaptation that allowed them to continue problem-solving when other species would succumb to despair. Historical medical records painted a picture of a species forged by continuous adversity. Earth's medical archives documented countless global catastrophes, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, pandemic diseases, natural disasters that would have eliminated most civilizations. Yet humans had not merely survived but had used each crisis as an opportunity to develop new survival strategies. Zephyrian discovered that human medical practice itself reflected their Deathworld origins. Their surgical procedures were shockingly aggressive by galactic standards, involving practices that would be considered torture for other species. Yet humans recovered from these interventions with remarkable speed and minimal complications. The dietary requirements section made Zephyrian's food processor recalibrate its toxicity sensors. Humans regularly consumed substances that would be fatal to most galactic species. They processed alcohol, a powerful cellular toxin, as a recreational beverage. They consumed capsaicin, a chemical weapon deployed by Earth's plants for defense, as a flavor enhancer. Their cuisine included fermented organic matter that would be classified as biological hazards on most worlds. Physical conditioning data revealed that humans could voluntarily subject themselves to training regimens that would constitute cruel punishment for other species. They deliberately stressed their muscular and skeletal systems to the point of microscopic damage, allowing the repair process to create stronger structures. This concept of improvement through controlled destruction was unique among known species. The reproductive and child-rearing sections contained perhaps the most shocking revelations. Human offspring were born in an extraordinarily vulnerable state compared to other species, yet they compensated by developing at an accelerated rate under conditions that would be considered neglectful or abusive for other young creatures. Human children routinely engaged in activities that would require safety equipment and medical supervision for adult members of other species. Educational methodologies reflected this pattern. Human learning involved systematic exposure to failure, stress, and challenge. Their young were expected to develop independence through controlled adversity, creating adults with exceptional problem-solving capabilities and stress tolerance. Social structures showed similar adaptations to harsh conditions. Humans formed complex cooperative networks that could function even when individual members were incapacitated or eliminated. Their cultures celebrated concepts like sacrifice, endurance, and perseverance that were largely abstract to species from more hospitable worlds. Military applications data, heavily redacted but still readable, suggested that human combat effectiveness exceeded theoretical models by significant margins. Their ability to function while injured, their resistance to psychological warfare, and their capacity for sustained high-intensity activity made them formidable allies and potentially dangerous adversaries. As Zephyrian reached the end of Marcus's file, he found a personal note from the previous physician, a Caloran named Dr. Zithara. Colleague, if you are reading this, you share my burden of knowledge. Humans are simultaneously the most fragile and most indestructible patients I have ever encountered. They will apologize for inconveniencing you while suffering injuries that would hospitalize our species for months. They will refuse pain medication for procedures that we would consider torture. Yet they will also recover from conditions we classify as inevitably fatal. Treat them with the respect due to survivors of the impossible. Zephyrian leaned back in his chair, his bioluminescent patches flickering with the effort of processing this information. He now understood why the Deathworld protocol existed. Humans weren't just another species adapting to galactic civilization. They were living examples of what evolution could achieve under the most extreme conditions imaginable, and that knowledge would fundamentally change how every other species perceived survival, medicine, and the very nature of life itself. The shift rotation on the Harmony's edge began like any other, but Dr. Zephyrian found himself observing the human crew members with entirely new eyes. Armed with the knowledge from the classified files, he began to notice details that had previously escaped his attention. The way Marcus Chen moved through the corridors with an effortless grace that spoke of perfect balance and spatial awareness. The casual strength with which he manipulated equipment designed for multiple operators. Zephyrian's medical curiosity, now ignited by his newfound understanding, compelled him to design subtle observational studies. He wanted to verify the claims in the files without compromising the Deathworld protocol or alarming his human patients. His first opportunity came when Marcus reported to the medical bay for his routine quarterly examination. "Good morning, Dr. Kethaval," Marcus said, settling onto the examination platform with the characteristic human gesture of what they called a smile. "Ready for another exciting round of poking and prodding?" Zephyrian had prepared carefully for this encounter. "Indeed, Marcus. However, I would like to conduct some additional assessments today. Recent developments in xenophysiology have provided new diagnostic techniques that might prove beneficial." The human nodded agreeably, displaying the cooperative attitude that Zephyrian now realized stemmed from a species accustomed to enduring discomfort without complaint. He began with standard measurements, but paid closer attention to the readings that had previously seemed anomalous. Marcus's resting heart rate registered at what Zephyrian's instruments flagged as dangerously elevated for most species, yet the human showed no signs of distress. His blood pressure readings indicated a cardiovascular system operating under constant high-performance conditions that would exhaust other organisms within hours. "Marcus, I'm going to test your stress response systems today. This involves gradually increasing physical demands while monitoring your physiological reactions. Is this acceptable?" "Sure thing, Doc. What do you need me to do?" Zephyrian configured the medical bay's exercise equipment to its lowest settings, levels that would provide moderate challenge for most crew members. "Please begin with basic cardiovascular activity. Inform me immediately if you experience any discomfort." Marcus stepped onto the treadmill and began moving at what he described as a leisurely pace. Zephyrian watched in fascination as the human's body adapted to the exercise with minimal physiological stress. Gradually, he increased the machine's resistance and speed, expecting Marcus to request a pause or show signs of fatigue. Instead, the human began what he called warming up. His breathing remained steady, his movements fluid and controlled. When Zephyrian pushed the equipment to levels that would challenge trained athletes from most species, Marcus maintained casual conversation. "You know, Doc, this reminds me of morning runs back on Earth. Nothing quite like a good mountain trail to get your blood flowing. Have you ever experienced Earth's geography?" Zephyrian's bioluminescent patches flickered with amazement. "I have not. Perhaps you could describe it while we continue the assessment." As the exercise intensity reached levels that would be considered extreme training for other species, Marcus began sharing stories of Earth's landscapes with the enthusiasm of someone discussing pleasant memories. He described climbing vertical rock faces for recreation, running across terrain that would challenge military vehicles, swimming in waters that would be classified as hazardous environments on most worlds. "The really fun stuff happens when the weather gets interesting," Marcus continued, his voice still steady despite the machine's punishing demands. "Nothing quite like hiking through a blizzard or surfing during a storm to make you feel alive." Zephyrian realized that Marcus was describing recreational activities that would constitute survival scenarios for other species. The human's casual attitude toward what amounted to voluntary exposure to mortal danger aligned perfectly with the psychological profiles in the classified files. "Marcus, may I ask you to demonstrate your species' pain tolerance? This would involve controlled exposure to discomfort stimuli for scientific purposes." "Sure, but you might want to start small. Humans have a reputation for being a bit stubborn about pain." Zephyrian configured his medical scanner to deliver mild electrical stimulation, beginning at levels that would be noticeable but not harmful to most species. Marcus registered the sensation with mild interest but no apparent discomfort. As Zephyrian gradually increased the intensity, the human provided helpful commentary. "That's about equivalent to static electricity," Marcus said, at a level that would cause most species to request cessation. "This feels like touching a low-voltage fence." At settings that would be considered punitive for other organisms. Now that's getting into the range of a decent muscle stimulator. Only when Zephyrian reached levels that his equipment labeled as potentially dangerous did Marcus suggest they had reached meaningful discomfort. Okay, that's starting to sting a bit. Probably equivalent to a good workout soreness. The implications staggered Zephyrian. The human's baseline pain threshold exceeded emergency medical intervention levels for other species. This explained why human medical procedures seemed barbarically aggressive to galactic observers, and why humans often refused pain management that other species would consider essential. Marcus, one final assessment. I need to test your cognitive function under stress. This will involve solving complex problems while experiencing simulated emergency conditions. Zephyrian activated the medical bay's emergency simulation systems, filling the air with flashing lights, audible alarms, and atmospheric pressure fluctuations that would induce panic responses in most species. Simultaneously, he presented Marcus with a series of mathematical and logical puzzles of increasing complexity. Rather than showing signs of stress or cognitive impairment, Marcus seemed to become more focused and alert. His problem-solving speed actually improved as the simulated crisis intensified. When Zephyrian added simulated injury scenarios to the mix, creating conditions that would overwhelm other species' stress management systems, the human treated it as an engaging challenge. This is fun. Doc, reminds me of emergency drills back home. We used to practice medical procedures during disaster scenarios. You know, earthquake responses, flood evacuations, that sort of thing. Really gets your brain working efficiently. Zephyrian terminated the simulation, his understanding of human psychology fundamentally altered. The species didn't just tolerate stress. They performed better under conditions that would incapacitate others. Their evolutionary history had created beings who thrived on challenges that would be classified as traumatic events for most galactic civilizations. Thank you, Marcus. Your cooperation has been invaluable for my research. No problem, Doc. Always happy to help advance medical science. Same time next quarter. As Marcus left the medical bay with his characteristic casual confidence, Zephyrian began compiling his observations. Every test had confirmed the information in the classified files, but experiencing these capabilities firsthand carried an impact that clinical data could not convey. Humans were not simply resilient. They were engineered by evolution to excel under conditions that would destroy other forms of life. The weight of this knowledge settled over him like a heavy blanket. He now understood why the Deathworld protocol existed and why it required the highest levels of security. In the wrong hands, this information could transform humans from valued allies into feared adversaries throughout the galaxy. The emergency klaxons of the Harmony's Edge shrieked through the corridors at Aero 347 ship time, jolting Dr. Zephyrian from his sleep. His bioluminescent patches flared to full brightness as he processed the automated emergency announcement, echoing through his quarters. All crew to emergency stations. Hull breach in Engineering Sector 7. Toxic gas leak in Hydroponics Bay 3. Multiple casualties reported. This is not a drill. Zephyrian's serpentine form moved with practiced efficiency as he gathered his medical equipment. As chief physician, he had drilled for such scenarios countless times, but the reality of a multi-system emergency filled him with the cold dread his species experienced during genuine crises. His recent research into human physiology suddenly seemed academic compared to the immediate demands of emergency medicine. The medical bay transformed into controlled chaos as casualties began arriving. The first wave consisted of Vorthon engineers, their crystalline structures fractured from decompression exposure. Their transparent bodies flickered with internal damage that would require immediate surgical intervention to prevent catastrophic failure. Doctor, we have 17 confirmed injuries, possibly more trapped in the affected sections, reported his Caloran assistant. Dr. Zuthera, her frilled head crest flattened with stress. The toxic leak appears to be nitrogen tetroxide, which is causing severe respiratory distress in the botanical crew. Zephyrian began emergency triage protocols, his medical training overwhelming his exhaustion. The Vorthon engineers would require immediate crystalline matrix reconstruction, a delicate procedure that could take hours for each patient. The botanical crew needed respiratory support and cellular detoxification treatments that would strain the medical bay's resources to their limits. As he prepared to begin the first surgery, the medical bay doors burst open. Marcus Chen entered, carrying a Etherian crew member whose bioluminescent patches had gone completely dark, indicating near-death status. Behind him, 2 other humans supported a Caloran whose breathing apparatus had been damaged in the initial explosion. Doc, we've got more coming, Marcus announced, gently placing his patient on an examination table. The engineering section collapsed partially. There are crew members trapped under heavy debris. Zephyrian examined the Etherian quickly, his medical scanners confirming massive internal injuries that would normally be fatal. This patient requires immediate surgery. The internal damage is extensive. What do you need me to do? Marcus asked, already moving toward the medical supply cabinets with the purposeful efficiency that Zephyrian now recognized as human crisis response behavior. Marcus, you're not medically trained for major surgery, Zephyrian began, but Marcus was already preparing surgical equipment with a competence that suggested otherwise. Actually, Doc, most humans receive basic trauma medical training as standard education. Earth's environment kind of requires it. I'm certified for emergency field surgery, though I'm sure your techniques are more advanced. Zephyrian's understanding of human education suddenly expanded. What Marcus described as basic training would constitute advanced medical specialization on most worlds. Another piece of the Deathworld puzzle fell into place. Very well. I need you to assist with the crystalline reconstruction while I handle the respiratory cases. Can you manage structural tissue regeneration under pressure? Absolutely. Just talk me through your preferred techniques. As they worked together, Zephyrian observed Marcus's medical performance with the same fascination he had applied to his physiological studies. The human's hands remained steady despite the emergency conditions. His decision-making process is clear and rapid under pressure that was causing other staff members to show signs of stress fatigue. More casualties arrived in waves, each more challenging than the last. The trapped crew members from the engineering section presented with crushing injuries that tested the limits of galactic medical technology. For most species, the combination of pressure trauma, toxic exposure, and blood loss would have proved immediately fatal. Doctor, we have a problem, Dr. Zithara announced, her voice carrying the harmonics that indicated approaching panic in her species. The main medical computer has been damaged by the pressure wave. We're losing automated life support for the critical cases. Zephyrian felt his own stress responses activating as he realized the magnitude of the crisis. Without the automated systems, maintaining life support for multiple critical patients would require constant manual monitoring and adjustment. It was a task that would normally require a full medical team working in shifts. I can handle the manual monitoring, Marcus said, already moving toward the life support controls. How many patients do we need to maintain simultaneously? 11 critical cases requiring constant adjustment of their atmospheric mixture, pressure regulation, and cellular oxygenation. Marcus, this would normally require 4 specialists working in rotation. The cognitive demands alone. Doc, trust me on this. Humans are pretty good at multitasking under pressure. Zephyrian watched in amazement as Marcus began managing the complex life support requirements of 11 different species simultaneously. The human's mental processing speed seemed to accelerate, rather than deteriorate under the extreme demands, his movements becoming more efficient rather than more frantic. For the next 8 hours, Marcus maintained perfect life support for every critical patient while assisting with surgical procedures, coordinating with rescue teams, and helping process the continuing stream of casualties. He showed no signs of the exhaustion that was affecting every other crew member. When additional medical support finally arrived from the Allied vessels, Zephyrian realized he had witnessed something extraordinary. Marcus had single-handedly performed tasks that would normally require multiple specialists, and he had done so with a competence that exceeded trained professionals from other species. Marcus, how is this level of performance possible? The cognitive demands alone should have overwhelmed any individual organism. Marcus paused in his work, seeming genuinely puzzled by the question. Doc, this is pretty much standard emergency response. Back on Earth, we deal with this kind of situation regularly. Natural disasters, industrial accidents, medical crises. It's just Tuesday, you know? Dr. Zithara approached them, her crest raised in what Zephyrian recognized as profound respect. Dr. Kethval, I must report that the human's performance today exceeded any emergency response protocols in our medical databases. He managed patient loads that our computers calculate as impossible for individual monitoring. Zephyrian nodded, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with a mixture of admiration and concern. Marcus, I need to ask you something important. During today's emergency, did you consider your performance exceptional in any way? Marcus looked genuinely confused. Exceptional? Doc, I was just doing basic emergency response. If anything, I felt like I was moving kind of slowly without proper equipment and a full team. Earth emergency protocols are a lot more intense than what we dealt with today. As the immediate crisis concluded and normal operations resumed, Zephyrian found himself facing a new understanding of the Deathworld protocol's necessity. The classified files had described human capabilities in clinical terms, but witnessing those capabilities in action revealed their true implications. Marcus had just demonstrated performance that would be considered superhuman by galactic standards, and he regarded it as routine competence. If other species understood what they had just witnessed, the political and social ramifications would reshape galactic civilization. Humans weren't just adapted to survive harsh conditions. They were evolved to excel in crisis situations that would collapse other civilizations entirely. The weight of keeping this secret suddenly seemed far heavier than before. 3 weeks after the emergency, Dr. Zephyrian found himself in the ship's observatory, staring at the distant star that hosted Earth. The knowledge he carried had transformed from academic curiosity into a burden that affected every interaction with human crew members. He could no longer see them as simply another species adapted to space travel. They were living reminders of evolution's most extreme experiment in survival adaptation. The door chimed softly, and Marcus Chen entered the observatory with his characteristic easy confidence. "Hey Doc, Dr. Zithara said you wanted to see me? Nothing wrong, I hope." Zephyrian's bioluminescent patches dimmed to their most subdued setting, an involuntary response to the ethical conflict he faced. "Marcus, I need to discuss something with you. It concerns information that was previously classified, but I believe you have the right to know." Marcus settled into a chair designed for humanoid forms. His posture relaxed despite Zephyrian's obvious distress. "Sounds serious. What's on your mind?" "I requested your complete medical records several weeks ago. What I discovered has profound implications for how I understand your species and our relationship within galactic civilization." Zephyrian paused, choosing his words carefully. The Deathworld protocol had bound him to secrecy, but his oath as a physician demanded honesty with his patients. "Marcus, did you know that your species is classified under something called the Deathworld protocol?" Marcus's expression shifted slightly, becoming more focused but not surprised. "I was wondering when this conversation would happen." "Yes, I'm aware of the classification. Most humans serving on mixed-species crews know about it eventually." "You knew?" Zephyrian's patches flared with surprise. "But the secrecy protocols, the classified nature. Doc, think about it from our perspective. We interact with galactic species every day. We see how they react to things that seem normal to us. We notice when simple activities that we consider routine cause other species to stare or back away. You think we don't pick up on the fact that our medical treatments are kept separate from standard galactic protocols?" Marcus leaned forward, his voice becoming more earnest. "The thing is, we also understand why the protocol exists. If other species knew the full extent of what Earth's environment shaped us to endure, it would change everything about galactic politics. Fear, prejudice, demands for segregation. We've seen it happen before with species differences that were far less dramatic." Zephyrian felt his worldview shifting again. "You're saying humans actively participate in concealing their own capabilities? We cooperate with the protocol because we want to be part of galactic civilization, not rule it or be feared by it. Earth taught us that survival isn't about domination. It's about adaptation, cooperation, and finding ways to thrive alongside others." The human's words carried a wisdom that Zephyrian found both comforting and unsettling. "But Marcus, during the emergency, I witnessed capabilities that exceed anything in our medical databases. Your performance was beyond what our computers model as possible." Marcus smiled with what Zephyrian had learned to recognize as human amusement mixed with patience. "Doc, that emergency was mild compared to what humans deal with regularly on Earth. A toxic gas leak and some structural damage. On Earth, that's maybe a Tuesday morning emergency at an industrial facility. We have children who are trained to handle more complex crisis situations as part of basic education." "Children?" Zephyrian's patches flickered with disbelief. "Earth's environment doesn't make exceptions for age, Doc. A flash flood or earthquake doesn't care if you're 8 years old or 80, so we teach our young to respond to emergencies because their lives depend on it. Every human learns basic trauma medicine, structural engineering principles, emergency logistics, and crisis leadership before they reach adulthood. Zephyrian realized he was discovering another layer of the Deathworld adaptation. Human civilization had evolved educational and social systems that produced individuals capable of functioning as emergency response specialists by default. Marcus, I must ask you something that has been troubling me since I learned about the protocol. How do humans feel about being misrepresented to galactic civilization? About having to hide your true nature? Marcus was quiet for a moment, gazing out at the stars visible through the observatory's transparent aluminum windows. That's a complex question, Doc. On one hand, it's frustrating to be underestimated constantly. When other species treat us like we're fragile or limited, it can be challenging to maintain patience. He turned back to Zephyrian, his expression serious. But on the other hand, we understand that fear would be the natural response if other species knew the full truth. Earth created us to survive things that would eliminate entire civilizations. We're walking reminders that the universe contains environments so hostile that most species couldn't conceive of them, let alone survive them. But doesn't this deception create ethical problems for humans serving in positions of responsibility? We prefer to think of it as selective disclosure, Marcus replied with a slight smile. We share our capabilities when they're needed, but we don't advertise them when they might cause problems. During the emergency, I did exactly what the situation required. You noticed because you're a trained observer, but most species would have simply seen effective emergency response. Zephyrian considered this perspective, recognizing the sophisticated ethical framework that humans had developed around their participation in galactic society. What about other humans? Are they all aware of these considerations? Anyone serving on mixed-species crews receives briefings about cultural sensitivity and appropriate capability disclosure. We learn to modulate our responses to match what other species can understand and accept. It's not about deception. It's about successful integration. The conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the ship's communication system. All senior staff to the bridge. Priority incoming transmission from Galactic Medical Command. Marcus stood, his demeanor shifting to the alert readiness that Zephyrian now recognized as human crisis response activation. Sounds like we might have another situation developing, Doc. Ready to see how well human-alien medical cooperation works under pressure again? As they made their way to the bridge, Zephyrian reflected on what Marcus had revealed. Humans weren't simply hiding their capabilities out of fear or shame. They had developed a sophisticated approach to interspecies relations that balanced honesty with pragmatic consideration of political and social consequences. The realization brought both relief and new concerns. If humans were this thoughtful about managing their integration into galactic society, what other aspects of their civilization remained unknown? How many other species carried similar secrets about their true nature and capabilities? As they entered the bridge, Zephyrian found himself viewing the diverse crew with entirely new eyes. Each species represented evolutionary adaptations to different environmental challenges, but humans alone seemed to have evolved in response to challenges that would have prevented evolution entirely for other organisms. The incoming transmission began displaying on the main screen, showing the familiar seal of Galactic Medical Command. Zephyrian noticed Marcus position himself near the emergency response stations with the subtle efficiency that characterized human preparation for unknown situations. Whatever was coming, Zephyrian realized he was about to discover whether his new understanding of human capabilities would remain a secret between physician and patient, or whether circumstances would force a broader revelation of the truth hidden behind the Deathworld protocol. The transmission from Galactic Medical Command filled the bridge's main screen with the imposing figure of Chief Medical Administrator Vex Than, whose insectoid features conveyed the gravity of unprecedented circumstances. Her compound eyes swept across the assembled crew before focusing on Dr. Zephyrian. Harmony's Edge. We are implementing Emergency Protocol Alpha 9 across all mixed-species vessels. A plague outbreak has begun on the mining colony Kepler 442b. Preliminary analysis suggests the pathogen is unlike anything in our databases. It has already killed 40% of the colony's population within 72 hours. Captain Talara, a distinguished Caloran whose frilled head crest betrayed her anxiety, stepped forward. Administrator, what are our orders? Your vessel carries the most experienced xenobiological medical team in this sector. You are to proceed immediately to Kepler 442b and attempt to develop containment and treatment protocols. Be warned, 3 previous medical teams have been completely eliminated by this pathogen. Dr. Zephyrian felt his bioluminescent patches dim with apprehension. A pathogen that could kill experienced medical teams suggested something far beyond typical disease management protocols. Administrator, what information do we have about the pathogen's characteristics? Dr. Kethaval, the disease appears to attack multiple organ systems simultaneously in most species. It shows particular virulence against respiratory and nervous systems. Most disturbing, it seems to adapt rapidly to attempted treatments. Our computer models suggest a 97% mortality rate for any expedition to the colony. Marcus Chen, standing quietly near the tactical stations, caught Zephyrian's attention with a barely perceptible gesture. The human's posture suggested he wanted to communicate something important, but couldn't speak openly in mixed company. Captain Talara began issuing orders for course changes and emergency preparations, but Zephyrian found himself distracted by the implications. A pathogen that had defeated experienced medical teams would almost certainly prove fatal to his crew, including himself. Yet, if humans possessed immune system capabilities that exceeded standard galactic norms— Administrator, Zephyrian interrupted, I request permission to consult with human medical databases before we proceed. Their species has extensive experience with pathogenic threats. Vexthan's compound eyes focused on him with what appeared to be confusion. Dr. Kethval, while human cooperation is appreciated, their medical knowledge is primarily relevant to their own physiology. This pathogen affects multiple galactic species. Marcus stepped forward with the respectful confidence that Zephyrian now recognized as human diplomatic protocol. Administrator, if I may suggest, human medical archives include extensive studies of zoonotic diseases and cross-species pathogen transmission. Our planet's biodiversity required us to develop broad-spectrum approaches to disease management. Something in Marcus's tone suggested layers of meaning that only Zephyrian could detect. The human was offering information that went beyond standard diplomatic cooperation. Very well, Administrator Vexthan agreed. Dr. Kethval, you have 6 hours to review any relevant human medical data before you reach the colony. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. As the transmission ended, Captain Talara began organizing the expedition team. Zephyrian approached Marcus with growing certainty that the human's offer contained implications related to the Deathworld protocol. Marcus, I need to understand what you're really suggesting. Are you saying that human medical knowledge might be uniquely applicable to this situation? Marcus glanced around the bridge, ensuring their conversation remained private. Doc, remember what you learned about human immune systems? Earth's environment forced us to develop defenses against pathogens that exist nowhere else in the galaxy. Our medical databases include information about diseases so virulent that they would eliminate other species before those species could even study them. Zephyrian's patches flickered with growing comprehension. You're suggesting that human immune systems might provide natural resistance to this pathogen? I'm suggesting that humans might be able to work directly with infected patients without the environmental suits and remote manipulation systems that limit other species' effectiveness. If this pathogen is as aggressive as they're describing, traditional galactic medical approaches might be completely inadequate. The implications crystallized in Zephyrian's mind. Standard galactic medical protocols assumed that dangerous pathogens required maximum isolation and remote treatment methodologies. But if humans could provide direct patient care without protective equipment, their treatment effectiveness might exceed anything possible with conventional approaches. Marcus, are you volunteering to expose yourself to a pathogen that has killed 97% of its victims? Doc, I'm volunteering to do what humans always do, adapt to impossible situations and find ways to help others survive them. But this would require revealing capabilities that might compromise the Deathworld protocol. Zephyrian realized they faced a choice between maintaining the secret that protected human integration into galactic society and potentially saving thousands of lives with capabilities that would fundamentally alter how other species perceived humanity. The ethical implications are staggering, Zephyrian admitted. If we reveal human pathogen resistance, other species might demand segregation based on fear of human disease-carrying potential, or they might finally understand that humans can be valuable allies in situations that would destroy other civilizations. Marcus countered. Doc, the choice isn't really ours to make. Those colonists are dying while we debate protocol considerations. Over the next several hours, Zephyrian wrestled with the most significant ethical decision of his career. As chief medical officer, his primary obligation was to preserve life. But as a keeper of the Deathworld protocol, he was responsible for maintaining the balance of galactic civilization. The solution came from an unexpected source. Dr. Zithara approached him as he prepared his medical equipment for the colony mission. Dr. Kethville, I have been observing human medical capabilities since the recent emergency. I believe that in this situation, ethical medical practice requires us to use every available resource. Dr. Zithara, what are you suggesting? I am suggesting that some secrets become unethical to maintain when lives hang in the balance. If humans possess capabilities that could save those colonists, we have an obligation to employ those capabilities regardless of political consequences. As the Harmony's edge approached Kepler 442b, Zephyrian made his decision. He would reveal the truth about human medical capabilities to the expedition team and let the consequences unfold as they would. Some secrets were too dangerous to keep when the alternative was allowing preventable deaths. Marcus, when informed of the decision, simply nodded with the quiet determination that Zephyrian now understood as characteristically human. Doc, whatever happens next, we'll face it together. That's what crews do. Standing in the medical bay, preparing to transport to a plague-ravaged colony, Zephyrian realized that the Deathworld protocol was about to end. Whether it would be replaced by fear, respect, or something entirely unforeseen would depend on how well the galaxy could accept the truth about humanity's extraordinary nature. The transport coordinates locked in, and Zephyrian prepared to discover whether revealing the secret of Earth's children would save lives or reshape galactic civilization forever. Either way, the age of hidden truths was ending, and a new chapter in human-alien relations was about to begin.